Yes, do tell me, what industry are you in, and in what capacity are you currently using AI? I'd love for you to pop that into the chat and let me know. In what capacity are you currently using AI? And the other question that I also have for you is I would like to know if you believe we are currently in a bubble. You can pop that in the chat, yes or no. Do you currently believe that we are in a bubble? An AI bubble right now as we speak? Or do you think maybe it hasn't come yet? Maybe it's on its way, maybe not at all. What are your thoughts on that so far? So if you're joining me right now, we are talking about the AI bubble and 5 ways to stay safe. And the question that I had is I wanted to know exactly what industry are you in and in what capacity are you currently using AI? And do you believe that we are currently in a bubble right now? Maybe it's coming, hasn't arrived just yet. What are your thoughts before we jump in and get started? Now, I also want to give you a moment to share this with your network. I think that this will be very valuable to them as well before we get started. So the focus is all about the AI bubble and 5 ways to stay safe. In the third quarter of 2024, AI companies raised about 18.9 billion in venture funding, according to CB Insights. So the median AI company had a valuation at approximately 40 to 50 times the annual reoccurring revenue. And that's compared to the SaaS median of 6 to 8 times revenue. So that's not optimism, that's a bubble, right? So here's where we should really get a little bit terrified. More than anything, if we're looking at the Gartner's 2024 AI survey, it found that only 54% of AI projects make it from pilot to production. McKinsey's Global AI survey reported that while 63% of organizations use AI in at least one business function, only 8% see a significant financial impact. So what that really means in the translation here is that you are investing heavily, you are getting minimal return, and you're doing it inside a valuation bubble that will correct. But right now, smart leaders are making expensive bubble mistakes. They are buying AI tool collections without the infrastructure to support them. And also claiming ROI based on vendor promises, not actual measurement. And the other thing I see that's happening is that they're building complete vendor dependency while calling it an AI strategy. And it's almost like when you see vendors, sometimes they are going to say things that you want to hear and not things that are necessarily factual. And if you're not familiar with the strategy and what that should look like for you and an ROI, you may believe every word that they say. And the other thing you need to look out for is that there are also hiring specialists before creating the conditions for them to succeed. So when the bubble corrects, and it will, those mistakes become a catastrophic expense. But here's what's different about today. I'm not here to convince you that the bubble exists because you already know that, right? I'm here to give you 5 specific actionable strategies to protect you and your organization when the correction comes. So these aren't theoretical. They are backed by verified research from Gartner, McKinsey, Harvard, MIT, and 2 decades of technology implementation experience in healthcare and regulated industries. So by the end of this 1 hour, you'll have a framework to audit your current AI investments. You'll be able to identify which are bubble exposed versus bubble proof, and also make decisions Monday morning that protect your organization. So, 5 ways to stay safe. Let's begin. So, I want to jump into the very first problem. The first problem is the bubble, right? You are inside of it. But before I give you 5 ways to stay safe, you also need to understand that these specific bubble mechanics that you're fighting against, this isn't just one bubble, but it actually is 4 simultaneous bubbles creating a compound risk. So here's what the research is currently showing. The first bubble is the capability bubble. Gartner's 2024 AI hype cycle, 85% of AI projects fail to deliver the expected business value. IDC's AI spending guide shows that organizations spend an average of 2.1 to 2.8 times their initial AI investment on integration and data preparation. MIT's Sloan Management Review from 2023 shows the average AI accuracy it diminishes from demo to production by 23 to 28%. So there's a serious degradation. So what this means is that vendors demonstrate AI in optimal conditions. These are the perfect conditions, right? This is what happens when everything goes right. They're showing you clean data. They're showing you control variables and best case scenarios. So based on this information, you implement AI in actual conditions, right? That also means that sometimes you have messy AIs as well. You have messy data that you have to worry about trying to clean up. And so then you also have control variables, right? And best case scenarios. The gap between demo and deployment, this is where millions disappears. So here's a verified example from IBM Watson Health. Most documented AI capability gap in healthcare. So from 2013 to 2016, IBM Watson partnership with MD Anderson Cancer Center. The investment was 62 million. And per MD Anderson, the internal documents reported by Stat News said that the goal was AI-powered cancer treatment recommendations, but the outcome projected a terminated 2016. So it's a system that never deployed to physicians. So let's talk about what went wrong based on just their published reports. So Watson trained on hypothetical issues. They trained on hypothetical cases, not real patient data. They couldn't process unstructured physician notes from Epic EHR. And the integration was more complex than anticipated. So the recommendations didn't match the oncologist's judgment. Physicians didn't trust AI without transparency. So here's the pattern that we're seeing. IBM Watson Health raised 1 billion in investment. They signed partnerships with major health systems globally. But by 2021 to 2022, IBM sold or even shut down most Watson Health assets. Why? It's because the capability gap. Demo performance doesn't predict production performance. And here's another verified example. Amazon AI recruiting tool, public records through Reuters from October 2018, it shows between 2014 to 2018, Amazon developed an AI resume screening process. The goal was to automate the initial candidate screening, right? The outcome, it scraped 2018, never really fully developed. It was actually fully scrapped altogether. They never really developed it. It didn't continue from there. The reason is that the system showed bias against women. So let's talk about what went wrong. So AI trained on 10 years of Amazon resumes, and that's predominantly male and technical roles. And then the system, it penalized resumes with words like women, as in women's chess club. So these are the areas where they are focusing on their hobbies or their accolades. And it actually demonstrated biases. It also downgraded graduates of all women going through colleges. Amazon could not guarantee bias elimination. Projects terminated because they could not avoid the discriminatory hiring. So here's the capability reality. AI performs well on tasks it's trained for in conditions similar to training data. So different contexts, it equals degraded performance. So here's bubble number two, the timeline bubble. Let's focus on the facts and the research here. McKinsey's State of AI 2023, the median time from pilot to production was about 12 to 16 months. The vendor promised timelines 3 to 6 months. The gap is 9 to 13 months of invisible work. So here's another fact. Deloitte State of AI in the Enterprise for 2024. The 71% report longer than expected deployment. Primary delays, that was data preparation by 63%. Integration complexity, that's 59%. Change management is 54%. So the mechanism, that means that vendors measure from system operational to ROI achieved. You must measure from project approved to measurable value delivered. And so here's a Harvard Business Review analysis from 2023 that found typical pre-production timeline. The data preparation is 3 to 6 months. The integration is 4 to 8 months. User training is about 3 to 5 months. And then iteration to acceptable accuracy, that is about 2 to 6 months. So the total is 12 to 25 months before production to deployment. And then add vendors 6 month ROI timeline that they promised, and they said this is definitely going to happen, right? So now you're looking at about 18 to 31 months total. The pattern from healthcare is this, based on a class research on AI clinical documentation in 2023 to 2024. The vendor claims that 90-day implementation. It also claims the ROI within 6 months. So the customer reports, they actually show something a little different. The implementation is 8 to 14 months from contract to signature. Time to measurable ROI is 18 to 24 months. But the primary delays in EHR integration, that is physician adoption, that's workflow redesign, right? So the health systems, it was faster implementations. That means pre-existing data and quality programs. It also means EHR optimization already complete and a strong physician informatics team. The executive sponsorship with dedicated resources. So let's translate what this actually means. This means fast implementations require infrastructure that almost most organizations do not have. They currently do not have this. And so since they don't have it, it's very difficult to measure exactly what's happening. And if you can't measure what's happening, it's hard for you to try to correct or adjust or monitor. So this is an area that we're also going to focus on as well and look at how this breaks down. So the third bubble, this is the skills bubble. So I want to talk a little bit about the research. LinkedIn jobs on the rise for 2024. This is what it showed. AI job postings were up about 74% year over year. The median experience requirement was 2 to 3 years, field only mainstream about 3 years. The salary premium was 25 to 40% above comparable software engineering. Now, the Gartner Talent Survey from 2024, it showed this: 68% cite AI talent shortage as an adoption barrier. The average AI specialist tenure is about 14 months. The primary departure reason, that is the lack of infrastructure due to it being effective. That was about 47%. So here's the pattern. Organizations hire AI specialists before building infrastructure, and those specialists need to succeed. So the O'Reilly AI adoption in the enterprise from 2023 shows this. The successful implementation is data governance before hiring AR specialists, and that's about 78%. And then there is the executive alignment on priorities by 91%. And then another successful implementation would show dedicated data infrastructure budget by 84%. So now when we look at failed implementations, what we're looking at is hired AI talent without data governance, and that's about 71%. And then they also lacked executive alignment by 68%. But the expected AI talent to figure it out, that's another issue, without infrastructure, that was about 64%. So what this means is that the skills bubble reality is showing this. Hiring AI talent without infrastructure is hiring a Formula One driver before building the racetrack. The driver isn't the problem, but the missing racetrack is. You have to have that infrastructure in place before you even begin to onboard AI. So let's look at the bubble 4. Now, this is going to be the ROI bubble. Now, the ROI bubble, this is the measurement bubble. This actually can be the most dangerous of all. And that's because we're really lacking the documentation that's needed to measure properly. So if we're breaking down vendor cases and employee surveys and time studies, it's going to show a very, very different story. So the MIT Sloan Management Review and the BCG Joint Study of 2023, it shows this breakdown. 73% of organizations report productivity gains from AI. So when asked for the method, 64% cite vendor case studies, 52% cite employee surveys, and 19% cite actual time in motion studies with a baseline, but only 11% have rigorous measurement. So among the 11% with rigorous measurement, we're looking at actual improvement, which is 40 to 60% lower than the reported improvement. So here's an example that was reported: 50% productivity gain, measured 22% actual gain. So why the ROI bubble even exists? I want to give you a breakdown from Forrester. AI ROI claims analysis. This is the 2024 identified common areas of errors that came up most frequently. So the first one is no baseline, and that was about 76%. So they don't measure current state before AI. This is a critical area. If you don't have a benchmark in terms of what you look like in numbers before you implemented AI. Then there's the scope mix match. AI improves one step, report improvement across entire process. So we're looking at an attribution error. That means multiple changes are happening all at one time, and all improvement, they're attributed to AI. And that may not actually be accurate, especially when you have multiple things occurring simultaneously. So we're just looking at the verified research. Let's focus on AI in hiring. So based on the Harvard School MIT study, it examined 15 companies using AI resume screening. So the vendor claims was about 50% reduction in time to hire. But let's talk about the measurement, what it actually really showed, what the true numbers look like, right? So the measured reality, that is resume screening time, it reduced about 58%, accurate for that step. The total hiring cycle time reduced 9 to 14%. So the vendor metric was partial. The quality of hire was about 90-day retention, no significant improvement. Some showed a decrease in retention though. So with this information, this is showing what the measurement reality is. What are the true numbers that we can actually use as a baseline? The EEOC guidance from 2024 shows this. It published concerns about AI hiring tools creating an impact. The multiple companies under investigation, and then also regulatory risk where it's documented and real. So the ROI reality here is that Deloitte AI measurement study from 2024 shows this. Organizations with credible ROI measurement means that they have a documented baseline of 100%. They have an attribution method of 100%. Total cost of ownership calculation is 94%. So if we're looking at regular measurement audits, they have it at 89%. And then the willingness to terminate non-performers, that's at 76%. So we are to compare them to organizations with questionable ROI claims. This is what we would be looking at. We're looking at a documented baseline of 23%, an attribution method of 18%, and then TCO calculation of 31%, with regular measurement of 41%, and then a terminate for non-performers as 19%. So we're holding on to our non-performers, and that shows in the ROI as well. So the four bubbles, they create a compound risk. We're looking at the capability inflation. That means it's going to be unrealistic timelines. And then the compressed timelines, that's the panic to hire. We have to hire for people that are familiar with AI and not really having the structure in place. So hiring without the infrastructure, that's the specialist failure. The specialist failure that leads to pressure to show ROI. And if you're under pressure to show ROI, you may not be pulling in accurate numbers. So there's that ROI pressure, the measurement theater, which is not accurate. The measurement theater that justifies next capability inflation. So everything looks great. So now based on these numbers, we should invest in this area, and that also is not accurate. So basically the cycle continues and the bubble grows, right? So I really want to talk about now how you stay safe. And this is going to be a really important part for us to focus on, because this is how you make sure your business is in alignment and it's in a good space so that you can move forward with the appropriate measures. And we're talking about reality. We're talking about what you actually can implement right now. So the part that we want to focus on first is to build an infrastructure first and not tool collections. So what that really means is that in the beginning of the first onset of having access to AI tools, it was really about collection. How many AI tools do we need to make this work? Or this is a new tool, it looks good, it might work for what we need it to. But the core principle here is that every dollar spent on data governance, every AI operations frameworks, and measurement infrastructure is bubble proof. These investments create value regardless of which specific AI tools survive. So the AI tool subscription without an infrastructure, that's bubble exposed. When correction comes, tools disappear, but the infrastructure, that is the part that will still remain. So what infrastructure first actually means is that it's a component of buying. Basically, you before you actually buy anything, before you buy any tools, it's focused on just what you need. So there needs to be a unified data access layer. There's APIs, not batch transfers. There's the master data management. That's customer, that's entity, that's production data, that's unified across all systems. So the data quality baseline, we're looking at 85% accuracy at minimum. And the data governance, that's clear ownership. We're looking for access policies. We're looking for how we also share agreements as well. So when we focus on the timeline, it should be anywhere from 6 to about 12 months. And the reason why we're looking at it this way is because we want to make sure that what you have in place will survive regardless of whether or not the AI tool does. So if an AI tool that you're using, if they lose funding or if they are not competitive with the changes and they disappear, that's not going to impact you because you already have a data infrastructure. And so the component or the alternative also is that you keep buying AI tools that can't access data and then you start wasting millions of dollars. And that's not where you want to be at. Now we're looking at component two, the integration architecture. This is before scaling AI. Here's what you need. You need an API first infrastructure. So that means everything has a pragmatic access. Standards based on connectors. You want to use industry standards. We're talking about HL7, the FHIR in healthcare, the rest, and elsewhere. You want to look at standard connectors. So you don't bypass these because they have always been safe and successful in bridging the gap between different platforms. And then middleware platform, you don't customize or integrate every single tool because it's not necessary, it's not needed, and it also can be very costly. So why spend money on something that you actually don't even need? Then there's the integration patterns. You want to make sure that you document repeatable and not one-off projects. Now, I want to talk about why this matters. The IDC data, the average AI integration cost is about 2.3 times the license cost. So organizations with API first architecture, that's 0.6 times license cost. That's about 64% cheaper. So component three really is all about the measurement framework. So before claiming AI ROI, here's what you need. You need the baseline metrics. You want to document current state before any AI implementation. And then there's the attribution method. How do you isolate AI impact from other changes? The reason why information is important is because when you're making multiple changes at one time, you want to be able to specifically identify which changes or improvement were as a result of your AI implementation. You also want to look at your outcome metrics, not faster processing, but better business results. Regular audits, you want to look at quarterly measurement discipline. So this may feel expensive and slow, but compare it to the alternatives. You're looking at a tool first approach, which is very common. A lot of people did that. Businesses, organizations, large and small, they went out and brought AI tools, right? So year first, they brought maybe about 5 AI tools. That was the average. That was about 200K each, and that equal roughly $1 million. Year one, the integration cost to pull everything into different parts of their systems, that was 2.3 times, which was about 2.3 million in additional costs. Now, year one, most didn't integrate properly. You didn't know how, right? A lot of information, lots of moving parts happening at one time. So it had limited value. That means that there were AI tools that businesses purchased and it was just sitting on the shelf. You didn't access it. You weren't sure actually how to integrate it into the process, your day to day. Year two, it was all about tools that don't talk to each other. And this is the data silo that continues. So you have tools, they don't connect to each other. Some of them actually make the other one obsolete because they don't talk to each other. Now, in year three, you have the abandoned 3 tools. It sunk cost about $1.8 million. And then 3 year total, we're looking at 4 million spent, minimal durable value. All the tools that had been collected and literally like sitting on the shelf, they had zero value. So the infrastructure first approach, the way this would look like is that, and should look like, year one, you build the data infrastructure. That's the API layer governance that equals about 600K. Year one, you also implement measurement framework at about 100K. Year two, you buy 2 AI tools that integrate easily. That means you're asking all the right questions, things that you don't even know may happen, but this is how we use it. Would we be able to integrate these tools easily? Year two, tools that actually work. You want to deliver measurable value. Can you integrate it successfully? Can we measure the value? What does that look like? Year three is that you add 3 more tools, right? There's the integration cost only at about 180K. Infrastructure already exists because you've already taken time to build that. And then your 3 year total is about 2.5 million spent. You have a durable infrastructure. It is prepared and ready to handle AI implementation and integration, right? And you have working tools because you have access to them. Everyone has access to them, though, or the key players that should. So we're looking at savings as at about 1.5 million, plus you have the infrastructure which survives tool churn. So when we look at the infrastructure assessment, I want you to ask yourselves these questions about your current AI investments. Can you swap any AI tool in under 90 days without major disruption? So if it's yes, you have an infrastructure. If it's no, you have a tool dependency. The second question I want you to ask yourself is, do your AI tools share data automatically or do you manually move data between them? So automatic, that means that the infrastructure already exists. You have the programs talking to each other. You check a box in one place, it automatically has the code connected on the back end. You don't have to repeat when you print it or when you send it digitally. Everything still exists. That is an infrastructure. If it's manual, then you have an infrastructure gap. The third question I want you to ask yourself is, when do you want to add a new AI tool? Does integration take weeks or does it take months? So if your answer is weeks, then that's good. You have a good infrastructure. Now, if you said months, you have an infrastructure deficit. The next question is, if your primary AI vendor disappeared tomorrow and is happening faster than you would believe, could you actually maintain current capability? If you answered yes, infrastructure resilience, that's good. No, that means that you have a vendor dependency risk problem. So the infrastructure is first action plan. That's the first thing that needs to happen. So that's before buying a new AI tool, you want to make sure that you audit your current data infrastructure. Can AI tools access the data that they need? And is data quality sufficient? And we're looking at about 85% accuracy. Is data governance already in place? You also want to assess your data readiness. So do you have an API first structure? If you have a data infrastructure already in place, you want to begin to look at can new tools integrate without custom development, right? And what's your current integration cost look like? Should it be like less than the license cost? What would that mean to you? And you want to verify measurement capability. So what that means is that do you have a baseline metrics for this process? Can you attribute improvements specifically to AI? And do you have AI methods to prove ROI? Because the answers, they actually reveal the infrastructure gaps. To invest there before buying more AI tools, you want to focus on the infrastructure investment priorities. So priority one is a must-have. That means you have data quality and governance. Priority two, that's high value, measurement and attribution frameworks. Priority three, it enables scale. It's an API first integration architecture. And priority four, it accelerates adoption. So there's the AI operation and monitoring tools as well. So if you want to target investment split, it looks like this. It's 60% infrastructure, that's data, that's governance, that's measurement, that's integration. And then there's 40% AI tool in applications. So the current typical split, that's 20% infrastructure, 80% in tools. So this inversion is why most AI investments actually fail. The infrastructure first viability questions you can rate your organization based on 1 to 3. You want to look at your data infrastructure, data in silos, poor quality, no governance. So some data integration is acceptable quality, basic governance. And then the third one is unified data access, high quality, 85%, or strong governance. And if you're looking at your integration architecture, the first one is customer integrations for everything, no standards. The second one is some API-based integration, mixed approaches. And the third one is API first, standard-based, repeatable patterns. The main thing is that we want to be able to still measure capability. And if we're measuring capability, what that looks like is the first one is no baseline, no attribution method. The second one is some baseline, but informal attribution. And the third one is rigorous baseline, documented attribution, and regular audits as well. And when we turn our focus to the organizational readiness, the first one is no change management. That means minimal training. The second one is basic change management, some training. And then formal change management. That's about 25 to 30% of budget for training. So if you scored anywhere from 10 to 12 across these four, you're ready to scale AI. If you have scored 6 to 9, you want to build infrastructure before scaling. And if you scored 4 to 5%, you want to stop buying AI tools and you want to build a foundation first. And the way that you measure everything and believe nothing. Now, this is going to be your core principle. That means that you would not accept vendor ROI claims. You would not trust employee perception surveys. And you would not declare victory based on this feels faster. So the measurement discipline is really about looking at it from this way. So I'm going to pull in a nucleus research from 2023. Nucleus research from 2023. And what their studies are showing is that organizations calculating full TCO before purchase is 47%, and they decide not to proceed. Organizations not calculating TCO is about 52%, and they regret their decision by year 2. So the way that this translates is it's rigorous measurement and it prevents expensive mistakes. So if you're focusing on constant measurement, you are going to be able to eliminate what these mistakes look like or the great impact that it could have because you're monitoring the outcome. You're trying to understand what's a good outcome. Did we hire better people? What does the 90-day retention performance scores look like? What does time to productivity look like? Did invoice processing costs decrease? What's the total cost, including AI and not just labor? These are good outcome measurements. Did report availability improve decisions? That means decision speed, decision quality, business results. And outputs can't improve while outcomes stagnate or become worse. So you want to look at what the output AI screens, what it looks like, what the hiring quality looks like. Is it decreased? Has it increased? Is there bias within the process? These are the questions that you're measuring, that you're asking, that you're honest about, so you can understand what a good outcome means, what a poor outcome means. And you want to track leading and lagging indicators. So I want to next focus on the 5 different ways to stay safe. And this is going to be the critical areas that we're going to focus on before we get ready to wrap it up. And the reason why we're focusing on this is because we want to make sure that you are positioned for when the market changes, when the correction happens with AI, you are thoroughly prepared and thoroughly ready to move forward, and you know exactly what steps that you need to take. So these are things that you can implement on Monday morning to set yourself up for success. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I see. So the 5 ways to stay safe, we're going to focus on the infrastructure first. You want to allocate about 60% of the AI budget to infrastructure and 40% to tools. Because the infrastructure, it survives tool churn and also vendor consolidation. So that's the scenario, is that if the vendor goes under, what does that mean for your organization? Are you AI dependency, or do you have a structure in place, an infrastructure that will help to support the changes that may and will occur in the future? And every infrastructure dollar, it compounds in value. So that would be your focus. And then you want to measure everything, even things that you think might be simple, and we don't need to document that, or you want to measure everything because every number, when you evaluate it, it has a story. You want to make sure you have the right story to make better and more effective decisions. So you want to calculate your TCO at 4.2% times license over 3 years. You want to document baselines before implementation. This is the biggest mistake that I see, is that there is no documentation. So everything looks wonderful and fantastic. Everything is looking amazing. That's because we don't have a baseline, right? We don't know what it looked like beforehand. So now it looks like magic, but it's not. And only trust what you can actually prove. What do the numbers actually show with your data? And be in rigorous 11%. You want it to be really tight and accurate. And the fourth way to stay safe is your regulatory foundation. You want to budget anywhere from 15K to 50K for legal review before purchases. So 41% face unexpected regulatory challenges. One violation terminates entire AI programs. You want to have a buffer so that you are prepared for that. And your internal capability. You want to negotiate knowledge transfers for 3 team members and enable 80% internal changes. So that means that whatever knowledge that they are collecting or absorbing and learning along the way as they're working with AI, you want to make sure that there is a transfer of knowledge. Whether they are a consultant or internal employees, you want there to be a consistent process where there's a sharing of information. And you want to save at least about 250 to 650K over 3 years by avoiding dependency premium. That means you're constantly calling out new consultants and you're hiring new folks just for them to transfer over this knowledge that you already had direct access to. And if structured properly, you won't have to do that. Then you want to plan for correction. So scenarios, they can plan for mild or moderate or even severe corrections. So you want to lock pricing now. You want to monitor your vendor health. That is consistently checking in with AI, looking at what the market trends are, having honest conversations so that you know exactly what vendor health looks like. And you want to build survival capability before you actually need it. So these 5 strategies are backed by research from Gartner, McKinsey, Harvard Business School, MIT, Stanford, and they represent the difference between organizations that survive corrections and organizations that collapse when the bubble burst. So implementation, you can start this Monday morning. You can actually implement this right away. So with these 5 ways, this allows for you to make sure that you are looking at your existing processes and also what your audit tool is going to look like. So when the AI bubble will correct, whether it's now, sooner or later, but it will correct. And when it does, you want to be the organization that built the infrastructure and not just tool collections. You want to be the one that measured consistently and not hopefully. You want to be able to secure regulatory foundation proactively and develop internal capability, not vendor dependency, and plan for correction before it actually happens. So not the organization that's scrambling to explain why 5 million in AI investments delivered only 800K in value, right? So now you have 5 ways to stay safe. You have the framework to audit your portfolio, and you have the action plan. So Monday morning, you want to audit your AI investments. You want to score them honestly and make the hard decisions. The organizations that survive corrections, they are the ones that saw it coming and they built accordingly. So the correction is coming. You definitely want to make sure that you are ready. And like I said, this is something that you can implement Monday morning. You have enough information that you can move forward on. This is Simone with Apelli, and until next time, take care.